Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guests today are Cornelius Brown, the Director for Department of Defense Sales at Verizon, and Brian Schramsky, the Managing Partner for 5G at Public Sector at Verizon. So Cornelius, I'll start with you. We're talking about smart base futures and what that means for the United States. Give us an idea of what a smart base looks like and what it is.
Yeah. Well, in essence, a smart base of the future is the integration of connected technologies that will fundamentally improve the performance and efficiency of assets and services across a military installation. And as we define smart bases, we can essentially view them as mini cities in itself, where infrastructure, building, transportation, energy management are all factors of a city and a base. And what drives a smart base is that they're all hyper connected. It's an ecosystem where everything becomes connected.
So this is something that you might have like a smart grid that brings everything together, that you're looking at the cybersecurity of something, you're looking at the physical security, all those sorts of things as well.
Absolutely. Security, it will be a fabric of how we architect smart bases. You also have things like sensors, cameras, vehicles. It's all working to become fully integrated. And it really allows the operators to have more control and make more informed decisions, which is really important.
So 5G is something that Verizon has been working on, obviously, and has partnered with the Defense Department on this. And Brian, what does 5G just mean to begin with? All of us have cell phones, but I'm not sure that we're exactly familiar with the networks that actually run them.
Sure. Great question, Scott. And I think we welcome that opportunity because I think 5G means a lot of different things to many different people, and we want to level set, right? And first and foremost, the 4G network is going to be the backbone for the 5G network, right? So as we deployed our 4G network, which is going on 11 years, can't imagine that already, we've made a lot of enhancements. So if you had a device or a first generation smartphone in 2010 and what it looks like in 2021, it's vastly different. And then obviously with our 5G nationwide and our 5G millimeter wave, we're now operating on low and mid-band spectrum on 5G. We're very excited, and it gives the ability for military installation and military personnel to use various networks depending on the use case. So as Cornelius mentioned, we're going to see some use cases around energy that will use 5G nationwide or in 4G in some cases, depending on the sensor. And then we'll see on the 5G millimeter wave and the ultra wideband as we get to next generation technologies where we want to do AR and VR, right? We want to control drones. We want to do better and more video, right? That's where you'll see the 5G nationwide and also the 5G millimeter wave really taking hold. And one of our test cases that we have right now is Miramar, right there in California, where they're actually using both 4G and 5G technology. And I think what we're also seeing is the ecosystem of 5G devices are only going to get better, right? I think we're limited in some cases. It's only smartphones, but you'll see, as Cornelius mentioned, some of those 5G IoT devices coming online later in 21, and you'll see gangbusters in 2022.
Yeah, can you give us an idea a little bit about how us as consumers might see 5G versus 4G? Because, this is something that it's hard to realize in the abstract until we actually see it, right? We hear that everything's going to be connected to the internet. So how might we see it as regular customers? And then how might people see this in the Defense Department in ways that things can get connected that may not be connected now?
Sure. So from a end user, it could be a military personnel or a loved one or a family member, right? So you can imagine you'll see 5G devices. So think about the newer iPhones, Samsung devices. Most recently with Apple and their new iPad all have 5G enabled into it. So from a consumer or day-to-day use cases, you'll see that. Very soon you'll see for more traditional like Cisco, Cradlepoint, Sierra Wireless, those IoT will actually have 5G connectivity in there. And what we're starting to see is also new avenues for us, right? Something that's going to be near and dear to our heart is we're going to use 5G to deliver broadband access, right? So something that you see today in certain markets around 5G homes. So we're outside of the traditional 13 colonies or the FiOS markets, if you will. We'll deliver broadband access through 5G, what we call business internet. So from the DoD standpoint, we see use cases where we will actually provide broadband access via 5G. So one of the things we get very excited about is the distribution model for 5G is going to be multi-pronged, right? You'll have 5G mobility, as I just mentioned, and you'll have something called 5G business internet where you're actually delivering broadband access.
Cornelius, let's turn to you for a second. Where you're talking about these smart bases and how 5G will work on them. What are some of the challenges that the Defense Department run into when they're trying to create a smart base versus just a regular base, I guess?
Yeah, great question, Scott. When I think about some of the challenges a base may face in becoming a smart base, I'd probably start with three things. The first one being security. For military bases, security cannot be an afterthought, and it has to be factored into the foundation of a smart base architecture and design. Second, I would say budget. The prospect of an large initial cost can be a little scary for organizations and represent another hurdle for them to adopt smart base technology. And then lastly, deployment and implementation is going to be critical. We often talk about how do we shift from PowerPoint to proof of concept and then into production, and careful planning and prioritization will be key to establishing that foundation. Brian talked about the use cases associated, and then we would need to really focus on return on investments, that would allow the operators to continue to scale into a phased approach, because something like a smart base doesn't happen overnight.
And we've seen, like I said, we've seen this happen on some military bases. What sort of things are they doing on these bases at this point? They were pretty big multi-million-dollar contracts with Verizon to really set these up. And so we see service members with different styles of life now, and we see different weapon systems and other things like that getting online with 5G technology. Can you just maybe explain a little bit about how these experimental and test beds are working?
Yeah, so going back to the effort at Miramar, which was one of the first 5G millimeter wave instances deployed on a military base. We're really taking a private public approach. So there's a large collaboration with multiple industry players to really enable various use cases around energy management, drone management, autonomous vehicles. And it's really a collaborative effort to really prove out, what does the customer want to accomplish? What's the desired outcome, and how do we prove that, the solution will work, and what does the technology yield? It's really important to think through the different, factors of 5G. I think Brian discussed it very well, that we have millimeter wave, we have this, the C-band technology, and then we also have LTE that exists today. So, depending on the use cases, we have the technology that will fit the needs of our customers best.
And so you could just move between each one of those if you need to. So if you need something with a lower band, you just, go ahead and use that and don't go to anything higher, right?
That's right. And, we often talk about interoperability, and a lot of our handsets, as an example, are built with software that allows dynamic spectrum sharing. So depending on the bandwidth that's required, you can seamlessly, go between the different technologies to build a connection and maintain a connection.
So one of the things the Defense Department's really trying to work on is integrating artificial intelligence, machine learning within not only 5G, but within everything it does. It's supposed to be like electricity, basically. You don't really think about it, it's just there. How is artificial intelligence and those sorts of things being integrated in with 5G at this point?
Yeah. So, devices are continuing to become smarter, which means that they're going to generate larger amounts of data. They're going to be capable of delivering more services. When you pair that with, mobile edge computing, MEC, now you have the ability to process information closer to the end user or the application via the cloud. And this really removes a lot of historical latency that prevented us from, applications being able to make near real-time decisions. And I think autonomous vehicles are a great example of that capability, where now they can process their environment, such as red lights, people crossing streets, they can avoid accidents. And in some cases, they can even drive themselves with level 4 and level 5 autonomous capabilities that did not exist before mobile edge computing. So paired with 5G, artificial intelligence and machine learning will help users process terabytes of information, make data-driven decisions, while providing actionable insights that they can take action on, like predictive maintenance, enhanced safety, and even threat detection will all be benefits of 5G paired with artificial intelligence and machine learning.
And you were talking about, autonomous vehicles and things like that. Those are already being used in some ways, or being looked into being used on some of the experimental bases. I shouldn't say experimental bases, the test bases. So how can they bring in the data? How is 5G helping with those sorts of technologies? And what are those vehicles doing?
Yeah. So, in these autonomous vehicles or drones, when they're going out and doing various testing, they're surveying the environment, they're collecting massive amounts of data. And what we see, at Miramar as an example, is these units can come in at the end of the day, they can dock into a station, and 5G allows them to do massive data dumps of 100 gigs of data at a time. So therefore, researchers can then go take that data and analyze it. So that's just one example of what 5G will make possible in regards to connectivity to connected things.
And what might we see when it comes to just being an individual once you're on the base? You're going to see drones flying around, maybe a autonomous vehicle driving by. What can you do with your phone? Maybe watch a movie, something like that. Are things going to be a little different than they are now?
Yeah, the visual often reminds me of the Jetsons, right? So I would expect to see, drones potentially delivering packages, shuttles with no human driver, going around the campus. But yeah, it'll be a different way of life that will make things, more effective, more efficient, and more seamless for sure.
And Brian, anything on terms of things that people on the IT side might see that might be a little bit different? I mean, are they going to be able to check analytics faster, make security better, things like that?
Yeah, I think from an IT administrator or security analyst, right? I think 5G and as well as just mobility in general gives you a better opportunity to actually see down to the end device, right? Every device is going to be connected. So you can put in vectors like GPS, right? This device should only be responding for this particular location. It shouldn't be on the other side of the base. To get real-time data, you can actually have a control plane to see who's authorized on my network, who's not supposed to be on my network, right? So a lot more transparency, which is really cool. Now it opens up that threat vector, right? Because you're going to have more devices connected. So that's where you see security layers being put on top. Hear terms around software-defined perimeter, or zero trust architecture, where you want these devices. I mean, going back to Cornelius's point, I look at autonomous vehicles squared, right? We have one scenario on the base where we have a unmanned vehicle, autonomous vehicle, actually having autonomous drones on there. So you have an autonomous shuttle moving drones that are autonomous as well, right? So taking it one step further, we're not just having autonomous, a shuttle or a drone. You're actually combining that, and all of that is working with no human intervention, right? The drones know to go right back. And if they're running out of battery, the shuttle actually goes to them rather than somebody, it's reading the data from the actual drone. So it's those kind of interactions that you'll see when everything is connected. You take it to one level higher, which is really exciting.
We're going to take a quick break. My guests today are Cornelius Brown, the Director for the Department of Defense Sales at Verizon, and Brian Schwamsky, the Managing Partner for 5G Public Sector at Verizon. I'm your moderator, Scott Maucione, on Federal Insights, a discussion on the smart base of the future, sponsored by Verizon on Federal News Network.